The elderly woman broke down after her husband died. After a few years, she found something strange in the wall. In a neighborhood, there's always one house that everybody speaks about. A similar thing occurred in Tennessee's Germantown. There were reports that one house was possessed, but there was in fact something totally different, something that had the strength to shock the whole world. The owners of the home began to hear an odd sound, now and then. The sound gradually became more regular, however, until the owners began to hear it non-stop. Then they knew something had to be done. Keep watching to find out more about the extremely odd thing lurking behind the walls of this house. It looked like a normal house. These homeowners stayed in what they considered to be just an ordinary dwelling. Their home was situated in Germantown, a small but pleasant town where everyone talks to everyone. The house was, however, in a desirable neighborhood. This family was genuinely delighted to be living in Tennessee. However, when the house was bought by this family, they were not aware that they would have to do so much work later on to be able to live happily in their home. A weird noise had started haunting them shortly after moving in. The house was pretty old. This house was a little older, so the family expected the entire house to hear several noises, the occasional creaking sounds and related noises. They got used to them. This specific noise, however, was something they had never heard before. But despite the age of the house, the family was pleased with their home. After all, there are plenty of beautiful old houses in Germantown and people choose to renovate them so they can make them attractive again. But what was the strange noise that was constantly causing trouble for the family? The noise was becoming regular. The family figured it wasn't a big deal. The first time they heard a peculiar sound in their house. Now and then they heard it. Furthermore, the others didn't when one person noticed it, so they thought it was nothing to think about. Then all the members of the family began to hear the sound. It would occasionally appear at first, but then it began to occur more often. The noise was getting annoying. Usually you can find out what it is when you hear a noise inside your house. We hear water dripping occasionally or a creak. Yet for these homeowners, it was difficult to work out what the bizarre sound was. They were not only unable to locate the sound, but they couldn't find where the sound came from either. The noise seemed to be shifting around the house. They were scared things were going to be worse soon, and the noise became permanent. The noise was heard now and then at first. Later on, however, it became incessant. The homeowners knew there was something they had to do. It was impossible to live in a home knowing that something strange was happening. The owners were very worried that maybe this noise lurking behind the walls might cause their home some serious harm. They got an interesting idea. After trying to sort it out, there was only one way of figuring out where the noise came from. Was it a rodent, a mouse, or a rat may get trapped in the walls? Occasionally, when it happens, a distinctive clicking noise is heard by the homeowners. These homeowners, however, were very confident that this noise was not coming from a rodent. And it was a mouse, then a lot of them had to be trapped in the walls. Maybe the whole rodent family was here. The homeowners were determined to get rid of them for good and didn't want to take any risks. They decided to take some action. Soon the family decided on pest control. The family called pest control to the rescue. As soon as they were concerned, they were able to find where the noise was coming from. After some time, this made it easier to get the pesticide into the walls of the house. For pest control, the company came home, labeled the walls, and put as much pesticide as possible in the expectation that the rodents would be killed or at least made to flee. But still, no one was sure exactly what was within the walls. Will the pesticide have worked to find out? Keep watching. But the noise was still there. The pest control company did not help out at all. To the dismay of the whole family, the distracting noise was still there all the time. The homeowners would hear it, and they were sick of it. They didn't, however, know what to do next. If it didn't help with pest control, what else could it do? The family had begun losing hope. They didn't know how to define or fix the issue. Thankfully, they soon came up with something else. Was the house really haunted? The family began to think that their house could be haunted because pesticides couldn't help them solve their problem. Whatever was causing the noise, that pesticide should have killed it. This sounds a little unreal, of course, but the family was out of options, and even though the house was haunted, they weren't sure what to do with some holy water aid, maybe. It appears as if the noise had no way to escape. Also, the family began to worry about their welfare safety concerns. Whatever was there, it was alive in those walls. The homeowners knew that no matter what it was, they'd have to make it go away. If it were a ghost, it would be a little bit more problematic to make it quit, right? Nothing anymore made sense. If it was an animal, it ought to have been destroyed by pest control no matter what. But it didn't work with the pesticide. So if it wasn't a solution, what might it be then? Coming up with new remedies, the homeowners discovered that their house was not haunted in any way. There must be something else causing all this trouble. So for help, they turned to Google and began searching for new solutions. Of course, for each problem, Google has pointed out hundreds of potential problems and solutions. On a few forums, the family began reading messages determined to find out what was going on in their household. It turned out, however, that their issue was special. Hearing the noise in unison, the noise and the intruder the family was dealing with were unique. As it turned out, since the owners themselves were unaware, no customer could find out what the noise was or where it came from. So they realized that they would try as precisely as possible to explain the sound. The next move was to wait for the sound to emerge so that it could be heard simultaneously by all members of the family. For a few hours, they sat down and stayed silent until they could sort it out and return to the forums. Then they heard the noise. The next time, it was worse than ever to find out what was causing it. Continue watching. But now the noises were louder. The noise was stronger than before, and it sounded as though it was triggered by something very big. Around the same time as the homeowners heard the noise, they decided on what the noise reminded them of. It was almost like a vibration of some kind. The vibration was caused by something alive, and now it seemed like their walls were more alive than ever before. This had to be worked out by the family as soon as possible. What creature might be causing the noise of vibration? The buzzing of the walls. The noise became much clearer a couple of moments later. It was a vibration of some kind mixed with a buzz. That's when the owners of the house knew that they were in a very peculiar situation. Now they agreed to go and spend some time in the yard. Now they didn't go to get any rest outside. They decided instead to make sure this time they were right about the echo. What the homeowners tried to do next. You won't believe the new idea. The owners of the homes went out and addressed one wall. They thought the sound came from that wall, and they were right. They did not only hear the sound very clearly now, though, but they also saw a little bug creeping around the glass. Was this a regular bug? Yes, it was. Of course. Apparently, there was a tiny bee crawling on the wall. Then it snuck in, but was only one tiny bee the source of the sound of the buzz. David Glover to the rescue. The family now knew that they may have a problem with the bee, and they decided to call someone to assist them. They eventually found a local man named David Glover. After searching the internet for some time, who could help them? Don't worry. The owners didn't want to kill the bees. They decided to get rid of them, but without doing any harm. If the bees were really the source of the strange buzzing sound, and for this mission, there is no one better than David Glover. After all, this guy was known for his awesome abilities. David Glover and his work. David would be the one you'd like to call if you had a bee problem. Many people assume that if your home is invaded by bees, you can call for pest control to get rid of them. On the other hand, to help you solve this problem in a totally different way, you would call someone such as David. Bees are on the route to becoming an endangered species, so it would be a massive blunder to eliminate them. That man who rescues bees is David Glover.